Hi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm Jay from Jay Sweet and Sour Life, and today we're talking to George Goes Everywhere. Go everywhere. And so your series is based around, traveling on a budget and everything. And I wanted to know, where did the series come from? What inspired you to work with Million Stories?
Well, it's, really the series came from my own personal life, just kind of having travel ambitions that outweighed my bank account, and just wanting to do more than I could money wise, and so just kind of having to get creative. And my background is in television. I've worked in TV for many years, and so eventually just kind of made sense to combine these two things, these travel on a budget and storytelling, and create this show.
That's awesome. And I know, I think more than ever, as we move, into this year, that people are more budget savvy. And even though your series follows a solo traveler, I wanted to know, what advice do you give to families or maybe non-solo travelers who want to stick to a budget?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the places that I go are not necessarily more expensive for more people. I mean, some places are, of course, admission fees and stuff like that, and food will cost more if there's more people. But, a lot of stuff is free or just a couple of dollars. And so, expanding it to a family or a group of people isn't necessarily that much more budget breaking than doing it solo.
Right. Like some of the free things that you were able to do, or
some of the free things, and just some of the creative stuff, and things like that, or just street food that's really not that expensive. It's not adding an additional person isn't necessarily adding $25 worth of food. It's $5 or $6.
Right. And you're able to satisfy a lot of people, or just nitpick and try things.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, which location was your favorite destination and why from the series?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I'll admit I'm a little biased. I grew up in the New York area, so I am a little biased towards New York. But I love Chicago. That's one of my favorite cities in the whole world. And so if I had to say, probably Chicago. But Milwaukee really surprised me too. I was not, it's a smaller city, and I was really surprised by how much there was to do and how much fun it was. And how nice people were, of course. That the Midwest charm is very much a thing.
That hasn't aired yet, because I know Boston and New York is on Million Stories right now, so we'll have something to look forward to, so I know why you like Milwaukee.
Yes.
And I also wanted to know, during the series, you shared, travel hacks or just travel tips. I wanted to know, if you could share any more that weren't mentioned in the series for someone who is trying to travel on a budget, and, maybe they have $50 or they need to stretch $100 for two people.
I think it really comes down to kind of just doing your homework, really digging deep, and just not digging beyond just the first page of Google results for stuff. I mean, or because if you go on or the first page of a TripAdvisor recommendations, because a lot of stuff, the more popular stuff, sometimes it's overpriced, sometimes it's kind of touristy and not worth it. Dig onto like Atlas Obscura is a fantastic resource. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Never heard of it. Cool.
Atlas Obscura is a fantastic website. Has a lot of that sort of quirkier, more off the beaten path type stuff in a given city. But look at that, search, like message boards, go onto Reddit, stuff like that. Just find sort of stuff that's not necessarily the first page of Google results.
Right.
Do your homework, and kind of, because doing your homework is free. And so if you do that, I think you can always find things no matter what your budget or how many people you have.
I'm one of the people that, I'm a foodie. So I'm over on Yelp and I'm going, what's this and what's that and what's this? And I need to see all the photos and everything that has to do with it. But speaking of foodie, your travels incorporate food. Have you ever thought of doing $100 budget for a foodie day? I mean, I would totally be on there watching that.
I haven't. That's a pretty good idea, though. You get three meals one day, $100. That's like $33 a meal, though. That's you could have some fun with that, I think.
Right? Or some street food, even for some snacks, you can throw that in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd totally be able to go on there and be like, oh, well, I'm adding this to my bucket list.
Sure, yeah.
And I also wanted to know, what was your cheapest travel experience, and was it worth it, basically? Like, what was the cheapest travel experience, and was it worth it to do it for you?
Cheapest travel experience? I'm trying to wonder. What, you mean in the show? Like, what was the cheapest thing that I did?
Yeah, not free, because I know the Spite houses were free to look at.
The Spite houses were free. Oof. What was it? Not quite sure. Some the prices of all the things. There are 12 episodes. It all runs together. Well, I'll answer the second part first. I definitely think it's always worth it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you don't like something, if you eat something you don't like, you drink something you don't like, you go someplace you're like, I don't really think this place is great. I think it's always worth it. Even a bad experience is worth it. And
right.
It's never bad. Even when it's bad, it's never really that bad when you're traveling and seeing new things. So I always think it's worth it, because it's always an experience, and experiences are always worth it, I think. Right. But I think one of the most, I think probably if you saw the New York episode, it wasn't necessarily the cheapest, but I feel like I got the most out of my money was the breakdancing lessons.
Oh yeah, and then at the end, you earned your money back, kind of.
Oh yeah. That breakdancing in the New York subways, maybe one of my favorite things I've ever done.
It was free to do.
It was free to do, and people were shouting at me from across the tracks there. It was a lot of fun. And so yeah, that's not necessarily the absolute cheapest thing I do, but I think it was the most bang for my buck.
And probably a really great memory for you to look back and be like, I totally learned that today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of how people are, kind of shouting at you, and I know at one point you were kind of being laughed at. What is it like for you to record solo and have, this audience behind you that doesn't necessarily know what you're doing, and how do you kind of overcome that little bit of stage fright that some of us have as influencers?
I mean, you just have to own it. I wouldn't say I even overcome it. I mean, it's there all the time. It's just, walking down the street, just talking into a camera, you get looks all the time. People are always staring at you, and people are always kind of giving you the side eye, wondering what you're doing. And you never really get over that. I think you just have to own it. And for me, I mean, if I'm doing something silly where people are laughing at me, I think they're laughing with me. I mean, I'm a willing participant in this. And for me personally, being on camera, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a laugh, to get to entertain. I'm willing to just be whatever I need to be in order to get the laugh, to entertain. I think I'm a willing participant in it, and so that's kind of what I tell myself, at least. Maybe they're laughing at me behind my back, but
no, they're laughing with you.
It's always there. Just talking into a camera, even when you're not doing something silly, just talking into a camera, there's people always, kids come up to you and start talking to you right in the middle when you're recording stuff, or people come over to you and they want to know what you're doing, and you just have to own it.
That's great advice, though, because I know as someone like me, I'm always the one, the camera in my face, or I have my kids on me, and everybody's doing this, and I'm like, it's good content, guys. It's good content.
And it's just do you experience this? I mean, sometimes like I'll be recording something, but it's completely out of context. It doesn't make sense while I'm recording it in the moment, but when it's edited together, it makes sense. And it's like, they're looking at me, they're like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? I'm like, I just want to say to them, no, when you see the final product, it'll make sense, I promise. I know I look like a crazy person now, but in the end, it'll look good.
It's B-roll, guys, it's B-roll.
Yeah, this is B-roll. Don't judge it based on this. But you can't do that.
I do go through that. So, you're the writer, the producer, the editor of this series. What's that like, recording, the experience of traveling and recording yourself?
I mean, I really enjoy doing it, personally. I think it being kind of a one-man crew, I think it breeds an efficiency that you just can't get otherwise, because when I'm from researching it, shooting it myself, when I'm in a restaurant shooting something, I'm already kind of getting it in my head. I already know how I'm going to do it later on. And so I know what shots I need to get. And it just, you get used to it, and you just sort of know, okay, I'll use this B-roll for this shot, and I'll say this here, and I'll say that there, and use this B-roll in between. And you just kind of get a feel for it. And I think it makes things very efficient. I can shoot things very quickly. I'm rarely in a location for, more than an hour. And so you can really just kind of do things very, very quickly, efficiently. And I love doing it personally.
Did the process and efficiency come from your background in television, or was that something you developed on your own?
I think the pre-production, the writing beforehand, and the research beforehand, I think my background in TV absolutely helped that. It just, spending, near a decade in TV writers' rooms, it's an education in storytelling that you just can't get anywhere else. It's just, you're immersed in it all day, every single day, and it's just extremely educational. And so I think that background absolutely helped the pre-production part of it. In terms of shooting it and editing it, that's just experience. That's just doing it. I did it on my YouTube channel for years before I started working with Million Stories. And that the kind of thing, it's, like, you just have to practice it, like playing an instrument. You just need to do it and practice it and just kind of cultivate that skill.
You say process and efficiency. My kids call me a control freak because I know exactly how I want it shot. I know what I'm envisioning, but my kids call me the control freak.
You have to be. You have to. I mean, when you're shooting, there's so many variables, and there's so many just moving parts to it that if you don't think about it beforehand, it can go off the rails. And so I think you're on the right track.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So they're not so mad at me for no reason.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on your side here.
Thank you. And as you're filming, you are a solo person. I know you mentioned in the series that sometimes they don't like it when you're recording, and they don't like you, sharing your experience, basically. Was that a common issue that you ran into, or was it more of, it just happened here and there?
It's more of a here and there thing. Sometimes people don't want you sharing a particular thing in their place. That's pretty rare. I think more commonly people are more concerned with you filming them personally, and them kind of being unwitting participants, which I never do. I never just stick a camera in someone's face and, without their permission. It's always, I'll ask them beforehand, or if they express interest in it, I'll say, hey, do you want to be involved? Like in the New York episode, when I went to the Peruvian restaurant, Rosa, the Peruvian Nana who was cooking in back, she invited me back there. But I wasn't just going to wander back there. But I think, it's more people concerned with sort of them personally being, non-consensually involved.
Okay, yeah. So it's not necessarily you being there, it's more of a technical, personal.
Yeah, I think so. And usually, it's based on, the camera's on me, and, especially at a restaurant, there's, plenty of people are taking pictures of their food at restaurants these days. And
they are.
that's unusual. What I will try to do actually is, because I have two cameras. I have my big camera that has a big microphone on it, and that's kind of my main camera. But then I also have a smaller one that fits in my pocket, and that one is much more. You can be much more surreptitious with it, and kind of pocket it, and it draws much less attention to itself. And so in certain locations, I'll whip that one out and use that instead to be a little quieter about it.
Yeah, a little bit more nonchalant.
Yeah.
Speaking of, kind of behind the scenes of things, do you plan on having any videos pop up of your bloopers from travel?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought of that. That's not a bad idea, though. Yeah, there's some bloopers in there for sure. Yeah, especially when. Yeah, there's some bloopers, some stuff that didn't make the final cut, for sure. Some stuff at the Batsu Japanese game show that I went to in New York. There's some stuff that,
that we didn't get to see.
for pacing purposes, it kind of moved it along. But, more involved there. So yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'd love to see bloopers, or even just behind the scenes of what it's like for you being a solo traveler, solo, video, you're recording yourself. I personally am invested in learning how they're doing these things. And it truly makes you appreciate all the work that you really do, because, you're solo, you're doing literally everything on your own. So, yeah. And so I saw in your trailer that you shared your travel adventures from everything to classic cars, food destinations, and ghost hunting. What was the most bizarre thing that you did during your travels?
Most bizarre thing. Oh. Let's see. Most bizarre thing. There was a place in Minneapolis that I'm excited to come out. A place called, I believe it was Hot Sam's, Antiques or something like that. I forget the exact name. But it was basically several acres of just a man just sort of set up like he'll get an old boat and just set it up there, and it's an Instagrammer's paradise is what it is basically. And so I don't know, there's one shot in the trilogy so where I'm driving a golf cart around. That's from there, because he lent me his golf cart because it's so big, and there's just fire trucks and like space shuttles made out of like homemade space shuttles, not real space shuttles, but and just it's acres and it's enormous, and I think it was only like $10 to get in, and it was definitely really cool. Also in Minneapolis, another place called the House of Balls, which is because it's a local artist. He makes a lot of different art, but one of his primary things is he carves sculptures out of bowling balls. And so I can't even imagine how he does it, but they're everywhere. And just, I believe that was free to enter. And also a very unique artist with a very unique shop. and also in Minneapolis.
So they're bowling balls that were designed to look like different art pieces, or they were sculptures that were made from the bowling?
They were sculpted. He carved the bowling balls down
That's
to
cool.
be like a person's face. And so I don't know how he did it, but and he had dozens of them. And it was just very unique and just really cool to see just, someone taking an everyday item like that and applying his artistry to it.
So that is bizarre.
A little bit, yeah. He was a sweetheart. We were talking to him. He was the nicest guy in the world.
So I only have time for one more question, and I really wanted to know, as someone who's traveled and recorded themselves, I'm sure it was awkward. Do you have any advice for fellow travelers who are camera shy, or any tips and tricks to help them embrace their recording of travel adventures, or in general?
I think if it's something you're really interested in doing, the good thing about when I started making travel videos, I was nervous about it too. And the one thing I said to myself is, I never have to show anyone. Like, I can record this, I can do this whole thing. If I don't like it, I don't have to show anyone. You're not beholden to share this with anyone. So in that regard, I think it's a little risk-free because you can do it, and you don't have to post it on Instagram or YouTube that day. You can go travel, take your footage, then come home, think about it, and see how you feel about it, and maybe show it to a close friend or family or something like that, and see how you feel about it. And so you can try it. It's a risk-free trial, and so just give it a shot. And if you don't like it in the end, you've lost nothing.
I've never thought of it that way. I've always been like, this is my commitment.
There's merit to. There is merit to that mindset of doing something and committing to it, of course. But if it's something you're nervous about, I say this because this is literally what I said to myself. I'm like, if it's not very good, if I don't like it, I don't have to show anyone, and then I'll know. And but I think most people, if you do try it, in the end, you'll want to show it. It's not as bad as you're making it in your head, I think, for most people.
Right. Especially for them just starting out, it's always, breaking through that glass ceiling of, I can do this, and this is what I love, and I want to show the world that. Which you definitely get through your videos. We can tell that you love to travel. Appreciate the budgeting, because as someone who travels with 4 huge human beings now, it's all about the budgeting and, making sure that you're giving everyone an experience and not just an expensive vacation.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. You guys, George goes everywhere, or he's on millionstories.com. You guys can check him out. Make sure you check out all his videos. He's got Boston, he's got New York. We have some other videos coming up very soon.
Atlanta and Nashville are the next on the list.
Awesome. I can't wait to check them out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here.